In our previous implementation of the circle, we declared the radius as a public data member. This made accessing the radius very easy. Entities outside the class could directly access radius using the dot notation. But this is somewhat unsecure as well, because the entities outside the class could set the value of radius to an invalid number, such as a negative number. So often the practice is to declare the data fields, data members of a class as private. Now to do so, we'll basically introduce the private modifier inside the definition of the class, and then move the declaration of the radius under private section. Now the radius is declared as a private data member of the circle. Entities outside the class circle cannot directly access radius this way. They'll have to use other functions inside the class. They're called Accessor and Mutator functions to access radius, or set and get functions to access the radius data member. So for that reason, we'll have to introduce two more functions into this class definition. One is get function, or the accessor function basically. The get function returns the value of the radius. So the return type is double for this function, and we'll call it get radius, no parameters. And then also we need a mutator or set function. The return type of a set function is void. The name of the function is set radius, and then we need to give this function a parameter, or the new value for the radius. So here's the name of the parameter, new radius, semicolon. So we have these two new functions inside the circle class definition. The get radius is in charge of returning the value of the radius, and set radius is in charge of updating the value of radius to new radius. Entities outside this class must use the services of these two functions in order to access radius. We need to implement these two functions, so I'm going to copy these two functions, take them to the implementation file, and then right in there implement those two functions basically. The first one, get radius, the return type is double. Need to do the scope resolution, circle colon colon, get radius, it's simple code in fact, return radius, semicolon. And then for set radius, again return type is void, the name of the class circle, set radius, and we'll set the value of radius to the new radius, semicolon. Now going to the main function, notice that since radius was made a private data member in the main, we cannot directly access radius using the dot notation. Right? So we need to update that. So instead of saying c1.radius, we have to say c1.getRadius. This is a function. Same thing with c2. We need to call the function getRadius on it. c2.getArea is fine. And now updating the value of radius. Instead of using direct dot notation, we have to use the function setRadius. So here, instead of this line, we'll have to say c1.getRadius. set radius to 100. So this line no longer works for us. And the same thing with line 12. We are looking at the value of radius. We need to call getRadius. And now everything is fine. We can run this code, and the same result will come up, but this time around the radius data member is declared as private. One more thing we can do to make the code more secure is to go to the implementation of set radius right here and place a validation in there and say, if this new radius, the parameter basically, is greater than or equal to 0, then we want to allow it to set the radius. Otherwise, we are not gonna set the radius to this new value, right? Only positive value for the radius will be accepted. The code will still run. We'll run the code, still comes up and works well.